Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanand. Thank you, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 60, Krishna teases Queen Rukmini, text number 53. Mam prapya maninya pavarga sampadam Vanchanti ye sampada eva tatpatim te manda bhaga niraje pije nrinam matratmakatva nirajasu sangama mam prapya maninya pavarga sampadam Vanchanti ye sampada eva tatpatim te mandavaga niraje pije ninam matratmakatva nirajashva sangama mam prapya manyenya pavarga sampadam Vanchanti ye sampada eva tatpatim te mandavaga niraje pije nrinam matratmakatva nirajashu sangama. Please chant. Man prapyamani nyapavarga sampadam vanchanti je sampadaeva tatpatim te mandavaga niraje pije nrinam matratmakatva nirajashu sangama. Man prapyamani nyapavarga sampadam vanchanti je sampadaeva tatpatim te mandavaga niraje pije nrinam matratmakatva nirajashu sangama. Man prapyamani nyapavarga sampadam vanchanti je sampadaeva tatpatim te mandavaga niraje pije nrinam matratmakatva nirajashu sangama. Man, myself, prapya, obtaining, manini, O reservoir of love, apavarga, of liberation, sampandam, the treasure, vanchanti, they desire, ye, who, sampadaha, material treasures, eva, only, tat, of such, patim, the master, te, they, mandabhaga, less fortunate, niraye, in hell, api, even, ye, which, nrinam, for persons, matra atmakatva, because they absorb in sense gratification, nirajaha, hell, susangamaha, appropriate. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Supreme Reservoir of Love, unfortunate are they who, even after obtaining me, the Lord of both liberation and material riches, hanker only for material treasures. These worldly gains can be found even in hell. Since such persons are obsessed with sense gratification, hell is a fitting place for them. Purport. It stands to reason that since Lord Krishna is the source of all pleasure and all opulence, He Himself is the supreme pleasure and the most opulent. Therefore, our real self-interest is to always engage in the loving service of the Lord. As Prahlad Maharaj said, Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 5, text number 31, Nate vidusvartagatim hi Vishnum. Quote, the ignorant do not know that their actual self-interest lies in obtaining the Supreme Lord Vishnu, Krishna. End of quote. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, one can easily obtain female association and other sense pleasure even in hell. We have practical experience that even such creatures as hawks, dogs, and pigeons have ample opportunity to enjoy sex. It is unfortunate that modern human beings who have a golden opportunity to become Krishna conscious prefer to enjoy like dogs and cats. And this goes on in the name of material progress. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Chasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Shrimate Ramapada Swami. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Krishna speaking to Srimati Rukmini Devi, and in one sense, this is quite, at least I find in myself, a very important instruction. And in one sense, it's like a very strong warning for, for most of us who are aspiring devotees, who are in the path of becoming Krishna conscious, and who have received by the mercy of Krishna's devotee the, the path of devotional service. Through the mercy of Krishna's devotee, we have been given access to the close devotional practices of experiencing Krishna in his form and his deity form and his holy name. And we understand that in this particular age, Krishna reveals himself in the form of in his deity form and his holy name. So we have obtained, by this mercy, we have obtained this opportunity. We obtained the opportunity of worshiping Krishna in this most intimate way by worshiping him in his deity form. Although our spiritual senses are still not awakened, we still cover or we still influenced by the modes of material nature, and we still recognize ourselves with this matter, this bodily we have the bodily conscious of life. We still, by the instructions and the system that Krishna has created, and he has given to us this system through the via media of his devotees. Through this system, we can, even in our conditioned stage, we can actually engage in direct service to him and have a direct contact. So when we worship the deities, these two principles, the worshiping of the deities and the chanting of the holy names, the hearing and chanting process is Shrimbatan Swakata Krishna, or this Shravanam Kirtanam process. by which we can always remember Krishna, Krishna's Smaranam, and then Archana, this process of deity worship, is a very powerful, it's a very powerful practice that fully awakens our dormant love for Krishna. It's scientific. It's perfectly scientific, and Krishna had designed it like that. He calls it like that, the ancient science of self-realization. In the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna tells Arjuna this ancient science, he describes it as an ancient science of this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. He had given many, 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 many years before he gave it to Arjuna, to the sun god Vivaswan. So he described it as an ancient science. It's a science because you can actually experience it. Once you apply, there's an experience. That's what science is. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also tells Pratyaksha Bhagavan Dharmyam, that this is actually, you can actually experience the perfection of religion. You have a direct experience. Pratyaksha means direct experience once you apply it. And the fact is like that. When we receive this opportunity, we obtain this opportunity. In fact, we obtain in Krishna through this opportunity. Then we do experience something, a change is happening. When we're in the altar worshiping the deities, there is something that you can look forward. Is a is an experience that goes really quite beyond something that we made, you know, is beyond our material, it's beyond material comprehension. It doesn't make sense from the material perspective. So therefore, materialistic people, people who who haven't obtained this opportunity, they see, and it makes no sense that you're worshiping the deities like that. It's like a little, what's going on in here? It's like, are you playing with dolls? You know, I mean, it's like you see babies doing that, playing with their dolls, you know, and creating a whole situation. You have a doll house and you have a little table and you serve them, you know, tea, and you cook something and you put them to bed and you move in here and there. So there's a whole reality that you create with toys. The babies look like that, children. But adults, you know, people that you're dressing and you're giving food and you put into rest and you bathe them and all that. What's going on? Yeah, it looks very beautiful, but they're, you know, what you're saying. God, you know, it is incomprehensible. But by the grace of the Vaishnava Acharyas, the devotees of the Lord, we receive this system. It's not a doll, it's not matter. It's an avatar. It's Krishna descending in the form of a deity. It's the Archa avatar. So mean that he is fully present, is non-different. And there's a procedure by which the Lord descends into the Archa Vigraha. I've never had the opportunity to be in a deity installation until I went to the Naperville program. Did, how many of you went to the Naperville installation? Yeah. Did, it was quite something, no? I mean, the whole procedure, it took 3 days of creating, you know, all these Vedic procedures for the Lord to actually fully be present in the deity. It was just incredibly beautiful. Mantras and all kinds of, invocations, and this is according to the Vedic scriptures. It's not something that is, okay, here, you buy a murti in the market in Vrindavan, and that's it. You know, it's a different thing when there is all this invocation, this installation. Or just recently, one devotee couple, I think, um, um, Prem Sarovar Prabhu and Shruti Priya Mataji, they installed the deities in their home. And um, His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was presiding that. So you can do a simple installation through the ultimate invocation or Vedic invocation of, you know, Nam Sankirtan. Um, but when you see the installation of the deities in the, in the temple with all the procedures, it's quite something. So it's an opportunity that we have. It's Krishna himself. And when we actually come to the position of being in the altar, worshiping them, is there's no experience like that. You do actually can, by their mercy, start to experience them as persons, the deities as persons. Even the little deities, I develop an attachment to the little deities by serving them. And I like that service a lot because in the small deities, the Radha Krishna deities, you have to offer what is called the 16 upachars. There are 16 offerings that you have to do to the deities. And the first thing that you offer is just prayers, and and then you invite them into the place of worship. So you invite them to step into their shoes, their padukas, and then please come to the place of worship. Then you offer a place, a sitting place. Then you ask them to kindly be very comfortable in their sitting place. It's like, you inviting when you have a very important guest. In this case, you serve in the Lord, so kindly be seated, my dear Lord. These are all with mantras. There are specific mantras, you know. They're called mula mantras. And then kindly be comfortable. Kindly accept this water to wash your feet. Kindly accept this water to wash your hands, to wash your mouth, and kindly accept this some sort of a refreshment, tambula. Kindly accept water to wash after you taste your tambula, and kindly step into the place in which we're actually going to perform the bathing ceremony. We're going to bathe you. In the morning, we bathe. So the Lord, and then you ask them, here's your towel, your yes, the towel, and kindly accept massage with fragrant oils. So you start to massage the body. Just imagine this: you're massaging the body of the Supreme Lord. You start with massaging the lotus feet, and then you start to go. You know how intimate this is. This is the activities that are performed by to the divine couple, Radha and Krishna, by the Manjari gopis, the associates, and the Ashtashakis. So these are the activities that are performed daily by the most intimate devotees of the Lord. And we, simple us, even still covered by this material condition, we're allowed to do that through the deity form. This is Krishna's program. And they're fully present there. And when you actually really focus on getting into the mood of serving them with care and with devotion, then you truly, even in your thick condition, you can experience their presence. You can see, and one of the things that you immediately experience in full is their beauty, the inconceivable beauty, especially the beauty of their smiling face and their beautiful eyes. Something that you can miss in that intimate service. So you're massaging their bodies, and then you're inviting them now to take bath. So you're bathing while singing mantras, the Brahma Samhita. And then after that, you offer the towel, you dry them, and then you offer to put tilak to Krishna, kumkuma to Shrimati Radharani, and then you offer their dressing and their ornaments. You start to dress them, and then you offer flowers, incense, lamp, water, and then boga. And then after that, then the last upachar is just to apologizing for any mistake that you made. So you, and no, well, no, the last one is that you offer anything that is desirable. So you may not have it, but in your mind, whatever is desirable in the world, idam sarvam, then you offer to the Lord. So and then you offer prayers. Any mistake that I made, please forgive me. So these are all mantras, and this is something that you do if you're a brahmana in the altar worshiping the deities. You do daily. So everybody can look forward that day that you got that opportunity to be in the altar and being able to serve the deities in this intimate way. And we receive that, we obtain that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And that's the deity worship. Now, when we talk about the holy name, we receive, this Mahamantra by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada on the order of Lord Chaitanya. And there's two things that we receive with the chanting of the holy name. One is our sadhana practice of chanting japa, chanting our 16 prescribed rounds minimum, and trying to do it or endeavoring to do it without committing the 10 offenses. We every morning we remind that be careful, try, make an effort to avoid these 10 offenses. And the other thing is that we do it in Sankirtan as a group. We do it in a community of devotees. And as a community of devotees, by Lord Chaitanya's order, we go out in the streets and share it with the world. Yesterday we have a blast, isn't it, Prabhu? What time you came back? 10:30, yeah. I wasn't home like about 10:15 or something like that. Yesterday we were at this hippie festival that happens, every full moon in the park during the spring and summer. So every time there's a full moon, then this gathering of people, what would you say they were about? Like maybe like 1,000 people or something like that. So they all sitting in a circle playing drums and having a great, having a party. And they have fires, all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. And there we are the devotees chanting Hare Krishna. So, and with no doubt, you know, our party of devotees were at the heart of the thing. And then we went chanting around the people, and you see that they're having fun, you know. Their fun is like they're having the drum and then dancing, like this. But when the Sankirtan party enters the scene, then everything turns, to the Sankirtan party. The type of joy that is experienced through Sankirtan have no match with, the joys of this material world. It's something that is so supremely attractive. And the type, when you see the devotees absorbed in the holy name and doing that type of activities for the benefit of society, and the devotees having this, it's almost like you like cover by this transcendental ananda, you know truly, it's so attractive, it's mesmerizing for people. They were really happy as we're going. I mean, everything stops. All the people with their fires and things like that, people just turn their attention to the Harinam, and that's it. That's their moment right now, because this is what we receive. If Krishna said, you know, like we receive this very wonderful opportunity, and we're grateful about it, and we're trying, you know, to honor and to pursue this great opportunity that we receive. But Krishna is telling us here, and the acharyas constantly telling us that just don't take for granted the thing. Um, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, let me see if I remember the verse. Bahujamma karyade shavana kirtanan tabutana pai Krishna pare prema dana. Bahujamma karyade shavana kirtanam. We can have, we can be engaged life after life, many, many lifetimes in chanting the holy names of the Lord. But if we don't pay attention to these 10 offenses, we can go on from many, 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 many lifetimes chanting, and we won't obtain the desired result, Krishna Prema. So the opportunity is there for us. Krishna is giving us, but if something happens that we becomes complacent in following, and we just do it as just an activity, but we lose sense of the purpose of that activity, then there is advancement, but it will be so slow that we can be life after life in the same business. And Krishna is telling us here that unfortunate are they who, even after obtaining me, the Lord of both liberation and material riches, hanker only for material treasures. So it's a strong warning, because I see it, at least for myself, that I'm grateful that I've received this opportunity. I'm grateful that Krishna is in my life, and I've obtained that by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, that brought all this opportunity to the world. But when I find myself hankering for some material things, material attachments that I'm still maintaining within my heart, and how we describe this material attachment, these material hankers, or these material treasures, These are type of already preconceptions that we have. We have a particular thing that is being deeply ingrained in our consciousness through life in this world and previous life. We bring all these conceptions. In Sanskrit, they're called upadis. Upadis means, they're particular material conceptions, designations that we have. This is a particular, very ingrained understanding of how you can be happy. Because at the end, it's all about that. I want to be happy. And the obtainment of happiness in the material condition is through the via media of the senses. Because the senses are the way we interact with the world. So, through the satisfaction of the senses, I get a sense of happiness, but it's not. It's just a temporary satisfaction of this particular body, but it doesn't last. And it have a price too. So, so it's an idea. It's holding to that idea. So if I'm constantly being pushed towards finding happiness with that type of thing, with material, it means I'm conditioned. And when I'm conditioned, then this is the path that is going to lead me more further down and down into being entangled in this material world. Is how this whole cosmic manifestation functions. So we have to have this very important instruction. We have to keep it in mind very, very closely that we have to act in such a way that is perfectly synchronized with this spiritual vision. One of the favorite books that I like to study, or at least when I was doing the Bhakti Shastri, I love two books mainly. I mean, they're all fantastic, but the ones that I've found that it was like I couldn't get enough of it was the Bhagavad Gita and the Sri Upanishad. And the Sri Upanishad is great because it's a very small book. It's 18 mantras. So, but it's so packed, and the acharyas are breaking it down very, very nicely. So you can study it, um, you know, you can break it down very, very nicely. So if we're gonna have an overview of the Sri Upanishad, is more or less touching in this particular verse that we're studying today. That there's the vision of the Sri Upanishad is explained in the opening invocation that gives us the foundation of all knowledge, which is the position of Krishna and his quality. Om Purnam Annam Purnamidam Purnam Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnam Adayam Purnan Evan Vashishyate. That he is perfectly complete, and whatever emanates from him is perfectly complete. And therefore we can worship in him as the perfect and complete. So his position is that it's very unique, that although he is in this position of being the source of everything, and so much is emanating from him, and everything that is part of his energy is perfect. And it's perfect, and it's all a complete whole. And although complete things are coming out from him, he remains perfect and complete too. It's not that Prabhupada explains that when you take something out of something, then you lose, you know? There's so if I take something, if I have a you have a bowl of you know apples. If I take two apples, then it diminishes the quantity like that. But that's not with Krishna. So and then later in part of um, the Ishupanishad, it tells us about two things, actually three things that we can understand. One, it defines our belief through a vision. It defines our actions that we have to take. And when you combine beliefs and practices or actions, then you have a lifestyle. So we can have a formula for those of you who are a little scientist type. You can do the formula: belief plus action equals lifestyle. So the Ishopanishad will tell us that transcendental knowledge, vidya, give us the beliefs, define our belief. And the practices, the sadhana practices, define our actions. And spiritual advancement, you know, advancing in the path of Krishna consciousness, would define our lifestyle. So our lifestyle, the Ishopanishad tells us, is for self-realization. So that's the paradigm. That's the goal. It's about self-realization. So a lifestyle is defined by that, by spiritual advancement, by self-realization. And then the practices that we do have to take into consideration is how we're going to act according to the knowledge that we've given, vidya. And then how the Ishopanishad put it is that these practices or sadhana or activities that we do as devotees, the activities of devotional service, eh, have to have a very clear and harmonious parallel path that you cultivate the spiritual activities along with your material activities. The spiritual activities have to do with the practices of devotional service, the nine processes of devotion. The chanting of the holy name, hearing and chanting, remembering the Lord, worshiping his deity form, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, cultivating friendship towards the Lord, becoming a humble servant of the Lord or serving the Lord like that, and surrendering everything you have for the Lord, Atma Nivedana. So we have these nine processes of devotion: Shabanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Dasyam Sakyam Vandanam, prayer. That was the one that I forgot. Prayer, praying to the Lord, and Atma Nivedana. These are the nine processes. So those are the activities of Vidya, transcendental knowledge. And then there's the activities that are according to your material nature that also have to be cultivated. And those activities have to do with eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. It's about the material. And you have to have a proper understanding. Krishna explains in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that in order to be a yogi, you should be able to perfectly balance these material activities. And he breaks it down, Krishna breaks it down in a nutshell like that, as you have to balance your eating, your sleeping, your working, and your recreation. So Krishna takes in consideration very practical things. As um, just human beings, you need to perform a duty. You need to work. Everybody needs to work. You need to do something. You need to act according, in society. So we are part of a social structure. So we have duties to perform. So there is work to do. But that work have to be balanced. And and then recreation is quite surprising that to be a yogi, we're talking about recreation. In general, you talk of recreation as some sort of a distraction, you know? And distraction means that, okay, I need a break from working and from all these responsibilities. So I'm going to the Cubs game or something like that. That's recreation. Well, I'm going to a concert or I'm going to watch a movie or something like that. I'm going to recreate myself. That's in general what, so that's not necessarily that you will relate it to a path of elevation or, like that. But Krishna says that in order to be a yogi, you have to balance that too, recreation. So what does that mean? Well, that is when we do those things, when we pay attention to our sleeping, to our eating, to our working and our recreation, what Krishna says is that you do what is required, not too much, not too little. So that's when we have the balance part. Not too much, not too little. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Sutta Goswami says that the purpose of doing these things is to facilitate yourself the hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. So, if the result of what you do when you're doing your material activities doesn't result in the desire to hear and chant the glories of the Lord, then Srila Sutta Goswami tells the sages of Naimisharanya that Shrava Eva Hikevalam is a waste of time. You're actually wasting your time. So, what is the word? Swanustitak Punsan Vishwakshena Katashujat. I can remember the first. It's about Dharma. Dharma Swanustita Punsam Vishwakshena Katashujat. Dharma Swanustita Punsam Vishwakshena Katashujat. If your activities, if your work doesn't produce this Vishwakshena Katashujat, kata, the talks or the if you don't develop an attraction to hear the glories, the kata of the Lord, the Supreme Lord Krishna, then not padajim jadi ratin shama eva hi kevalam. You're actually wasting your time. So, so the Sri Upanishad tell us that we have to cultivate these two things, but under the umbrella of this vision. And the vision is called the Ishavasya principle, which is everything belongs to Krishna. And whatever I do is for Krishna's pleasure. And the purpose of my life is to become fully realized of my relationship with Krishna. So the Ishopanishad breaks the whole thing. So give us, give us a vision, and that vision has a foundation, and the foundation is knowledge about the Supreme. And then he gives us the practices that we have to act in such a way that understanding that everything belongs to Krishna, and whatever Krishna has given me as a quota, I have to gratefully accept, understanding that for me, that quota is perfect and complete. So if I'm Krishna say, make sure you don't hanker for someone else's quota because yours is perfect. If we have the Ishavasya principle in place, that Krishna, whatever he has provided for us, is just right. So someone may have been in a, being provided a situation that is very limited in material resources. But that limitation of material resources is perfect for that living entity to have the right situation for elevating himself. Someone may be in the most opulent position. He received that quota. But for that person, that's the opportunity that received that is very, very perfect and complete. The problem that we have is when we start to hanker for, oh, wait a minute, I have this one, and I look at the side and I say, oh, that person have that. So I would like to have that. And I would like to have that. Is when we hankering for, we don't have the principle in place. So our practices, our lifestyle is going to be defined by that vision, that understanding, that Ishavasya principle. So we have to have knowledge of, we have to receive this transcendental knowledge, and we have to receive these purifying practices, the practices of sadhana. And, and then, through the Ishish Upanishad, we receive guidelines for that. And we also receive ultimately prayers to the Lord for knowledge and for purifying our practices. So, in one sense, this is the thing that we have to be so carefully understanding in order to don't become distracted. Because the problem that Krishna tells us here is how unfortunate that after you receive Him, you still go for trying to gratify yourself, or hankering for material pleasures that that is there, that in fact is just going to lead your life to some miseries, more suffering, and there's the danger, Krishna says, that you can actually be taken away and then have to be in a hellish situation. And sometimes as devotee, we find that out, that, we find ourselves becoming overwhelmed by anxieties and desires and unfulfilled this and frustration of that and this and that. It's because simply we have lost sight of this Ishavasya principle. And it's unfortunate. But Krishna is very kind, and that's why it's so important to remain in the association of devotees, because we keep hearing these messages, these warnings. It comes in so many ways in the association of devotees, from devotees, from the Shastras, sometimes even inspiration from within the heart that the Lord reveals this to us. So, through the instructions of the spiritual master. So all the things are there. So we're able to again sort of get back into track, like that. But it's a strong warning, and I think we have to be very careful about it. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for your class. You mentioned a yogi doing recreational activity and breaking breaking down that word recreation. It's, recreate. We recreate ourselves,
Hmm.
and I understand it's very important to do creative things. And in Krishna consciousness, we want to always be reminded of Krishna in whatever activities we are doing. So, creative activity is something that a person can do, spend hours and hours doing, which is like a plaything for him. It's not very complex, and it's doing something that we create something. I am I like to do different things, write, read, but reading is not creative. So, in your experience so far, Krishna consciousness, you have seen devotees doing different things. I know you play musical instruments. You are interested in that, but cooking. So, what creative activities would you suggest, or comes to your mind, or if you can speak about this topic more?
Yeah, about the how to. I mean, some devotees talk about this downtime. So to.
Well,
Uh,
not necessarily downtime. Creative activities, you're doing something productive, and you're creating something. As you are doing kirtan, you can do hours and hours. You can spend doing that, and different devotees have different inclinations. So,
yeah, it's a matter of a principle. Um, um, when you are the principle of recreation is something when you know is taking a break of when you are working. When you're working, your the mode of passion you have to be it's when you're creating, and you have to be negotiating, and you have to have it's all there's a particular aspect of the brain of the whole system that start to you know um, being in place. You're very alert, you're using a lot of energy. When you're working, you have to be interacting, you have to have a purpose, a focus. So in general, after a full day of intense work, you need this to come down and be into a place in which everything settles. So there is when you study the whole science of the body. I mean, I don't do that, but you read a little bit about it with Ayurveda. There is a particular substances that fires things. So there is the substances of the enzymes, or like adrenaline and all these different things that you have to act, that makes you act, that puts you aware, and they're intense and creates this expenditure of energy. And then there is this substance that I call dopamine that sort of settles you, and then in that space is a space in which your body regenerates energy. So one is that you're in a mode of expending energy. The other one is that energy that has been expended have to be regenerated. And then your body is very balanced. So how to balance the activity part, the part where you're spending energy, and the part that you're regenerating energy. So when we come to recreation, it's touching about these parts in which you regenerate, like you say, recreate. It's almost like you recreating, the strength of the body for the next day to actually go ahead again. It's like Lord Brahma. Every day he have to build a universe. That's his job. So in the night, everything goes in, and every day he have to go through the whole process of building the thing. Which think, wow, that's a lot of work. So, but that's a principle. So, what do we do to get that space in which you regenerate. So in general, you know, ideal, the lifestyle that we aspire into is, you do that by engaging in, you start to get a taste for hearing, the whole thing. Remember this swakatam, the Srimad Swakata Krishna, this Krishna Kata, this hearing and chanting is the essence of regeneration. So that's where we go back into, when we enter into these activities of hearing and chanting, remembering the Lord. This is the place of regeneration. The thing that is we're conditioned, and you asking me, in my experiences, I struggle with that mightily, because I'm still conditioned. I'm conditioned to a particular things that I find that, it's a particular. One time, my wife was explaining to me that what happened. She studies psychology. So, what happens when you form particular path that your mind goes, because it's already carved, through your consciousness. It have been carved in from the time that you're a baby. So according to how you manage stress, because when you're working or when you're doing an activity or you're presenting a situation that you have to negotiate and you have to interact, there's certain stress that gets created. So recreation is a way of managing that stress. So we find out that living in this material world, in an environment that is not Krishna consciousness, it's not uh, governed by vidya, is governed by avidya, then you find ways of managing stress that is not healthy, you know. So for me, the way, as a very small child, I managed stress was to basically obliterate myself by listening to music or some type of sense gratification. And I'm still struggling to to control that, because that's the space that I find peace, you know. But it's not related to Krishna. It's related. It's almost like this is something that I'm conditioned to go and find peace. So for different people, it takes different places. So we have to being able to buy the process. That's where sadhana bhakti becomes so important, because through sadhana bhakti, I'm start to dissolve the conditioning part and start to dismantle those already path, condition path that are there. Dismantle it, and then you start to gain a taste for these activities, that are Krishna conscious. So that becomes, now, hearing and chanting becomes a place that is the place in which you regenerate everything. So it's quite something. I don't know if I addressed the question. Is that okay?
It helps. My point was, whatever we do, it has to be Krishna conscious. It doesn't has to lead into that conditioned way to find peace. And we
Yeah,
all have to find that. I to to stay in bhakti, we all have to find something.
yeah. Yeah, in one sense, it's the cleverness of Krishna. Krishna is very kind and he's very practical. He's not going to force us. He understands that we have to go through a gradual process of purification. So therefore, we're given this Yukta Vairagya program that you start to dovetail, the things that you're really attached to. So I'm really attached to music. So I like listening to music. I always found, that was, but you start to uh, dovetail that, so you get ideas, and then when I make music for Krishna exclusively, you know, but I'm still influenced by my backgrounds of music. I was trained in jazz, and I loved, all kinds of sounds and things like that. So so I still listening to that music, and I still find a lot of sort of sense of sort of like satisfaction in listening to, analyzing sounds, seeing how it's put together. But then I'm getting ideas, how to use it for Krishna. So in one sense, it's not perfectly purified. I'm still conditioned, but you gradually moving towards these things. The fact is that you start to experience detachment, because to me it's inconceivable. You can't understand how attached I was to this thing. I mean, if you knew me back in time, it's really, really attached. But when I was put in contact with the devotees and went to Harinam, I mean, to me, Harinam is something that really transformed my life. The experience of Harinam is like the perfection of what I ever aspired to be a musician. It's like, you know, I was trained as a performer, so I like, it's natural for me to do music in front of people. I always was comfortable with that. But then, Harinam came into it just took over. Then, my band and all that stuff became more like an austerity, and Harinam was the place where I really found, this great joy. And it's all about joy. It's a joy, again, like I say, have no comparison. There's no comparison. And then the idea to perform in front of people, I mean, I just find it, like the ultimate. Because, with Harinam, you are, when you are out there, you're just sharing the ultimate joy with people. And people get it. They get it. You saw in yesterday. They get it, no? They do get it. So it works like that. It moved like that. We have to really have faith. We have to see it, from that perspective. I'm becoming detached. I haven't, for 30 years, the only opportunity that I took myself to make music, my music, was during the COVID time. And that has been taken away by giving me the responsibility of being a manager in the temple. Now it's finished. I haven't touched an instrument since then. But I'm okay. I'm happy, you know. Like, because I find like that. Anything else? One more minute. Yes.
Thank you, Guruji, for opening the ocean of this great knowledge from Upanishads and Gitas. Uh, I got a small question. I got two questions. We just talk about spiritual practices and material practices to worship Lord Krishna. So, can we distinguish the percentage while going towards the Lord Krishna, how these two practices should be balanced, spiritual as well as material? So, what should be the percentage of these two? And my second question is for material practices, are there any behavioral guidelines, how to behave in the society?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, sir. Uh, they are in the Bhagavad Gita. What gels these two things, because just even the term that Krishna uses, karma yoga, it defines that perfect balance between yoga are the activities of transcendence that elevates you, and karma are at your, you know, duties according to the material nature. So when you put these two together, they're not natural things that you put together. You know, they have two different results when you engage in them separately. Activities of yoga elevate you. Activities of karma sort of bind you to the material world. So they have different effects. Once you go into transcendence, once you go into the materialistic life. So now, to put those two things opposite together and very perfectly unify, you need something. It's like a special glue, and also this binding element. And the binding element is Divya Gyan, the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Divya Gyan means transcendental knowledge. So we need transcendental knowledge. We have to have this transcendental knowledge. In a nutshell, Krishna described transcendental knowledge in the verse that he says, what is it? Jamma karma chame divyan evan jo vedi tattvataha. That if one is able to understand the transcendental quality of Krishna's appearance in this world and Krishna's activities in truth, then that's transcendental knowledge. So, when we understand Krishna's activity, Krishna's position in truth, then we understand also automatically our position and our relationship with Krishna. So transcendental knowledge have these three elements, simple ones. Who is God, who we are, and what is our relationship with God. And how Krishna tells us in his system, you need this transcendental knowledge in order to have this perfect balance. It's perfect balance that the Ishopanishad speaks about. And to receive transcendental knowledge, then, tat vidhi pranipatena pariprasana sevaya upadeshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinan. We have to approach a spiritual master. Someone who comes in this evam parampara praptam iman rajasurovidhu, in a disciplic succession that comes directly from Krishna. So it's all there. It's a system that Krishna has given us. And Krishna, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, tells, just abandon all these different ways and just surrender. Just take my system alone. Krishna's system. Mam ekam shanam braja. Just do what I say. And then he says, Mam ekam shanam braja. What is it? Sarvadharman parijamaya ekam shanam braja. Naragara blank. How's it go there? Say it again. Aham tvam sarva papavyo moksha shami masuchaha. Masuchaha, do not worry. Whatever you may be worried or anxious about it, don't worry, I will take care. Just surrender to him. And Krishna's instructions are there. We just have to accept his system. And we don't have to worry about anything else. We can be peaceful. That's the Ishavasya principle. That's what we're talking in the Ishopanishad. And in the Bhagavad Gita, that Ishavasya principle, Krishna says, same thing. Bhaktaran jagata pasham sarva loka maheshwaram shuhidam sarva bhutanam gyanti man shanti richati. And we want to be peaceful, we want to be free from anxiety, then we accept this Ishavasya principle that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, Bhaktaran Jagya Tapashan. Jagya and Tapasa. He is the Bhakta, he is the enjoyer. Sarvaloka Maheshwaran, he is the owner of everything. Ishabasha Sarvam Idam, same thing. You know, he is the owner of everything. And Sruhidam Sharva Bhutanam. He is our best friend, best well wisher. We know that things in truth, and we can be happy and peaceful. I'm going to stop here because it's a little late, but thank you so much. Garantara Shriman Bhagavatam Ki Jai.